Well, a hallmark of the Harte Research Institute is that we want our work to influence policy and wise management and conservation in the Gulf. We have many examples of where that has occurred, particularly in fisheries. A good example is oyster policy. There's a lot of things happening in the oyster realm where we're directly influencing policy and management in oysters. We've worked on water for a long time. Paul Montagna and his team have been right in the middle of all the water crises facing the state of Texas. And our work has directly influenced good water management policy.
Well, after Hurricane Harvey, it was an incredibly dire situation here in the coastal bend and really all up and down the Texas coast. And what we found were that communities really didn't have a good sense of building resilience to these storm events and understanding the connection between the natural systems and the human systems and how really healthy natural systems lead to really healthy communities. And so what we did was put a whole effort behind that, and it was incredible. We reached out to communities, we spent time in communities, we got communities lined up with funding, we got communities to think about policies, putting those in place in order to build resilience into the future. And so I think one of the proudest moments of my time at HRI was being a bit of a part of that effort going forward and seeing the results and how that's really translated into a much better place to live and work all up and down the Texas coast.
The very best one, I think the one that would be used as an example in a textbook of what HRI does, has to do with the passage of the Modern Fish Act in 2018. That's when President Trump signed the bill, which was a bill directed at bringing recreational fishing up to a level of commercial fisheries management, which it hadn't been in the past. And so HRI was part of that from the very beginning of developing the whole concept, the science behind it. Greg Stunz and I testified before Congress a number of times, and then also Greg, of course, and Kesley Banks on the Management Council helped put it into effect. So it was one of those situations that took that HRI model from beginning to end. It did exactly what we wanted, taking science-based policy options and really making a change in how things are done in the Gulf. We said the magic words when you talked about the economics and policy issues. I mean, most people think of institutes like HRI as made up of natural scientists, chemists, and biologists, geologists, and that type of thing. But at HRI, we have economists and we have policy and legal experts. And it's really been that economic and policy chairs that have been the glue that brings the science together to make it work in what I would call a transdisciplinary work. In other words, they're actually working together. There are a lot of institutes around the country that call themselves interdisciplinary and that type of thing. And I looked at them pretty closely over the years. For the most part, trying to be kind, they're basically a website with everyone's names on it, but they're not together anyplace. And here at HRI, this is the real secret, is here in this building that we're setting in. That's where everyone is located. It doesn't matter if you're a chemist or a biologist or an attorney or an economist. We're all in the building with the students, with the staff, and you're working every day. And so that really helps build that ability to work together across those boundaries.
It's made all the difference. The fact that the founders of HRI realized that you can't solve environmental and natural resource problems by only looking at it through one lens. That you had to bring in not only the biogeophysical sciences, but you had to bring in the social, behavioral, and economic sciences, because it's people that make the difference. It's people that are making the policies that impact the natural environment and then therefore impact communities. And this has been a model that around the Gulf, around the world, institutions have followed because they see the difference that it makes.
Our interdisciplinary approaches here at HRI are really a hallmark of what we do. Ever since Ed's original vision that you have an institute that goes beyond just traditional marine science, those core philosophies remain. And so what it allows us to do is take our science and create effective policy for conservation in the Gulf. And so if that's in our engagement work we're doing, whether it's our marine policy and law or economics, we feel very strongly that the economy as well as the ecology of the region need to go hand in hand if we're really truly going to effectively manage the Gulf.
The other secret of it is, which I found and I think it's important, is HRI scientists are just a little bit different in that most academics, and this is fine, it's important, that they're focused on doing the research, getting the papers published, getting the students out teaching the classes, and that's really important. But that has never been enough for any of our chairs. Our chairs that come here really want to take that work that they did and they've done and with their students and apply it to solve a real problem, to take it that next step. And that's really what makes us different than anyone, I think, is our science base, our scientists, our chairs just want to go another step. And they're not content with just coming up with science and possibilities. They want to apply those possibilities.
The HRI model is all about engagement. It's about bringing together the different science and research and communication disciplines, implementing that in communities all around the Gulf, whether it be in the U.S. Gulf, Mexico, and Cuba. And it's about bringing communities forward so they can be more resilient, so they can be more connected to that, so they can have a vested interest in that natural environment. And so HRI, in working with those communities, has really changed the way that we think about that connection.
One of the things that HRI has helped change is that they've really kind of broken down this idea that academicians or university people live in ivory towers and never really come out of the university. And what we have seen here and what we try to do, as others have talked about and I have as well, is that our scientists really want to take the next step. They want to take that science that they develop and try to apply it. And that means they've got to work with people outside of typical academic world, and they build relationships with business, with industry, with people. And so that has kind of broken down barriers, and it's made it much easier for stakeholders to take scientists in and really begin to build a trust and work together because they have a relationship, and our scientists are willing to talk with them and share and learn. So it's really I think that more than anything has had the effect. And maybe also the fact that because we do have an integrated group of folks here with socioeconomics and economists and so forth, and we recognize that in solving resource problems and conservation, 80 or 90% of those problems are people related, not necessarily science. Science is important and we can do that, but it's how you interact with people to get the solutions done, find out what the problems are. And so that's something, because we have a strong emphasis on that, that's really what's made that difference.
Well, traditionally in the sciences, your work would stop with peer review publication, and that's certainly the gold standard for us here at HRI, but we feel it's much more than that. We want our work to get used in practice. And one way we do that is to make sure the general public is very aware of what we do, but also educating the general public on why they should care about a healthy Gulf or conservation in the region is really important to our successes. Well, we have many impactful moments here. Just working in a place with world-class scientists and their teams, there's always something exciting going on. But really, one of the most key things that we do is training our students and training the next generation of scientists. And when you see those students come in, they're young, relatively immature, and watching them progress through those stages and knowing that they're transforming from a student to a colleague is really moving, and knowing we're sending them out into the workforce to represent the Institute and themselves and the environment is really a moving experience.
I took over as executive director during the pandemic, and Larry McKinney handed that off in a really good position. We worked through the pandemic, the early stages of it, but we were still in the throes of it, and we needed to continue getting our work done. And the team here at HRI jumped in and didn't let the pandemic slow them down. The field work continued. As much as we could do visiting with our colleagues around the Gulf of Mexico,
that happened. It slowed things down, but we didn't stop. And that is something that I'm most proud of being a part of, is that the work continued, the engagement continued, the making a difference continued.
This was right after I was retiring. National Academy of Science came to me and asked me to be part of a committee in the Gulf Research Program to take a look at what the status of restoration was in the Gulf following 10 years after Deepwater Horizon and $8 billion expended. And they brought together some of the best restoration scientists really in the world, in the U.S., to be part of this committee. Now, I was on there just because of institutional memory. I've been around the Gulf for a long time. I knew everybody in a lot of activities, so that was really my role. But as we spent almost 2 years on that project, looking at all the restoration that going on around the Gulf, how science was done and all of that, and as I was participating on that and learning so much, what really hit home with me toward the end was how much HRI was such on target for how we were organized and set to go forward to really make an impact in the Gulf because of how we were organized and what I'd seen around the Gulf and our imprint on restoration all around the Gulf. Everything from grid C to oyster restoration and so forth, we were there. And so it just made me really proud of the people we have here, the scientists and those folks that are working together toward that end, because the National Academy of Science, when you are involved with that group and looking at what is happening, it's very meaningful.